Xenosystems Fragments. Horrorism. Nickland. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Neoreaction, as it tends to extremity on its dark Enlightenment vector, frustrates all familiar demands for activism. Even if explicit anti-politics remains a minority posture, the long dominant demotic calculus of political possibility is consistently subverted, coring out the demographic constituencies from which mobilization might be expected. There is no remotely coherent reactionary class, race, or creed, it painstakingly explains, from which a tide-reversing mass politics could be constructed. In this respect, even the mildest versions of neo-reactionary analysis are profoundly politically disillusioning. When demodist ideologies have entered into superficially comparable crises, they have forked into realist compromisers and terrorist ultras. The latter option, which substitutes a violent intensification of political will for the erosion of the extensive, popular, factor, is an especially reliable indicator of demodism entering an idealist state, in which its essential ideological features are exposed with peculiar clarity. Terrorists are the vehicles of political ideas which have been stranded by a receding tide of social identity, and are thus free to perfect themselves in abstraction from mass practicality. Once a revolutionary movement becomes demographically implausible, terrorists are born. Neo-reactionary realism, in contrast, is positively aligned with the recession of demotic sustenance. If this were not the case, it would exhibit its own specific mode of democratic politics, an evident absurdity. Any suggestion of frustrated rage, tilting into terroristic expressions, would immediately reveal profound confusion, or hypocrisy. Lashing the masses into ideological acquiescence, through exemplary violence, cannot imaginably be a neo-reactionary objective. Demodist activism finds its rigorous neo-reactionary counterpart in fatalism, trichotomized as providence, heredity, and catallaxy. Each of these strands of fate work their way out in the absence of mass political endorsement, with a momentum that builds through the dissolution of organized compensatory action. Rather than attempting to make something happen, fatality restores something that cannot be stopped. It is thus that the approximate contours of the horrorist task emerge into focus. Rather than resisting the desperation of the progressive ideal by terrorizing its enemies, it directs itself to the culmination of progressive despair in the abandonment of reality compensation. It demobilizes, demassifies, and de-democratizes, through subtle, singular, catalytic interventions, oriented to the realization of fate. The cathedral has to be horrified into paralysis. The horrorist message, to its enemies, nothing that you are doing can possibly work. What is to be done? Is not a neutral question. The agent it invokes already strains towards progress. This suffices to suggest a horrorist response: nothing. Do nothing. Your progressive praxis will come to naught in any case. Despair. Subside into horror. You can pretend to prevail in antagonism against us, but reality is your true, and fatal, enemy. We have no interest in shouting at you. We whisper, gently, in your ear, despair. The horror.